New York's Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo is refusing to step down from his role despite growing calls from within his own party to resign. The state's Senate Majority Leader has joined the growing list of Democrats questioning how effectively Cuomo can lead after two more of his former aides accused him of inappropriate behavior. A total of 5 women have now come forward against the 3-term governor. In response to the allegations, Cuomo has denied any inappropriate touching and has downplayed his behavior as, quote, playful and misinterpreted. For more on this, let's bring in Josefa Velásquez. She is a reporter for The City, an independent nonprofit newsroom that has been following the Governor Cuomo story closely. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's talk about these latest accusations. How is Governor Cuomo responding to them?
So yesterday, the governor had a press call with a bunch of reporters basically saying, I'm not going to resign. It doesn't matter what these lawmakers say. I was democratically elected by the people of New York, not politicians, and he won't be resigning. It's come to light in the hours following that call that the governor was really doing a preemptive strike. He already knew that the Senate Majority Leader, who is the highest ranking woman in the legislature, was going to be issuing a statement calling for his resignation. And as a result of that, the governor has been calling state lawmakers, according to several sources, basically asking them to hold off on issuing a statement, to let the Attorney General's independent investigation play out before making any assumptions about his guilt or innocence. And what we've seen in the last few hours is a steady stream of state senators and assembly members telling the governor that it is his time to step down. He has become a distraction and that he cannot effectively govern with accusations lingering over his head, and who knows what's going to come out of those.
So how are New York lawmakers and members of the governor's own administration reacting? What are you hearing from inside the Cuomo circle?
So inside of the governor's office, they're battening down the hatches. You've seen over the last week or so a stream of people, of aides, leaving the office. The administration said that a lot of these departures have been planned before all of this news broke. But I suspect, and according to sources, there will be more people leaving the administration. As for state lawmakers, there is a rallying call that the governor cannot effectively govern at this point. We have seen over the last 2 weeks a steady stream of women who have come forward, and everyone expects there to be more people that come forward with allegations of sexual harassment or just toxic workplace behavior. So at this rate, I think we're really waiting to see what comes next and whether or not the governor can stay on in his role.
So you recently wrote an article that basically said the Governor Cuomo's office violated the administration's own sexual harassment prevention policies. So what policies were ignored? And besides Cuomo, do you think there's anyone else who could be held accountable, I guess?
Sure. So after the Me Too movement and after the previous Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, stepped aside for sexual assault allegations, the governor's office put in these really intense sexual harassment policies, basically saying that any employee that becomes aware of any abuse in the office or any sexual harassment is a mandated reporter. And then once that happens, anyone in the supervisory position is mandated to alert the governor's office of employee relations, which is a pseudo HR department, and GOER, as it's called, has to begin investigations. According to Charlotte Bennett, who was one of the governor's former aides, that did not happen. She alerted the governor's chief of staff about some of the remarks that the governor has said, and gave a statement to a special counsel, and that was it. That goes against not only the executive order that the governor signed about this matter, but it also goes against the own employee handbook that's given to executive chamber employees. So we're not just talking about one thing that was possibly violated. We're talking about 2 sexual harassment policies that were not followed. And at this point, the Attorney General of New York, Tish James, is undergoing a process to hire an outside law firm to investigate these claims and try to figure out whether or not the proper procedures and protocols were followed as they were written.
So, Josefa, last week we posed the question of how the third-term Democrat could survive something like this during the Me Too era. But at the same time, other prominent lawmakers have been able to continue leading after accusations and even evidence of inappropriate behavior surface. Of course, that includes former President Trump. What's your take and your understanding in speaking to some folks in Albany about how Republicans and Democrats are held and the standards that they're held to? And something Anne Marie and I have talked about often, not on camera, but to each other, which is maybe it has nothing to do with whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, and just has to do with whether or not you're a powerful man.
Sure, and in Albany, you do see a lot of these instances of sexual harassment. It is, as one of my colleagues put it, as pervasive as air, and there have been a steady stream of lawmakers who have had to leave office under similar situations. And it is an issue of power and what happens when powerful men are elevated into these roles, and the people surrounding them as well. I think a lot of people in Albany right now are worried that there might be similarities between what's happening with Governor Cuomo and former Senator Al Franken. And you've seen Senator Schumer and Gillibrand take a step back and say, well, let's see how this investigation with the Attorney General plays out before actually calling for the governor's resignation. But this is a governor that made one of his cornerstone issues women's equality. He had a women's equality party that he ran on. He signed onto a massive campaign to prevent sexual harassment. So for these allegations to be coming forward, I think is at odds with some of his public stances on things. And at this rate, the governor has made previous remarks over people having to step down for similar allegations. We saw this in 2018 with then Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. The governor swiftly said these allegations are strong enough, he should resign. And right now, we have 5 women who have come forward against Andrew Cuomo, but he is not taking the same approach with his own administration. He's telling everyone, please hold off until this investigation concludes, which could be weeks, if not months.
So this whole thing, that's just one, actually now one, maybe 2 investigations that the governor is dealing with. There's another investigation. The Justice Department is probing the state's reporting of nursing home deaths during the pandemic. Where do things stand on that investigation?
So as you mentioned, there are sort of dueling scandals plaguing the governor's office right now, and one of them is involving an alleged cover-up of nursing home deaths during the pandemic. The governor's office initially did not report in the state's findings the number of people who died nursing home residents who died in hospitals. Right now, as things stand, there have been reports that the governor's aides sought to edit a report that stated how many residents of nursing homes had passed away at the time. And the report had been edited just as the governor began writing his book on COVID lessons and how to effectively govern during a crisis. So right now, not only does the governor's administration have to deal with these sexual harassment allegations, they're also undergoing an investigation by the Department of Justice, as well as the FBI and possibly even prosecutors here in New York, over how they handled it and whether they did actually, in fact, cover up a lot of people who have died. The number has ballooned, I think, to 15,000 at one point. So it is a lot of moving things that are happening all very quickly and simultaneously.
Josefa Velásquez, thank you very much for updating us on all those fast-moving stories. There's a lot going on with Governor Cuomo, and we're really happy that you were able to come on and talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.